Good morning and welcome to the next episode of our podcast,
where we drink tea and navigate the balance between school and personal life.
I'm Sophia Safe.
And I'm Sophia Curry.
And this is Sip and Spill.
Welcome back to the Teen Journal.
The topic we'll be touching on today is what seeking validation and approval looks like.
Okay, so I think this is a huge one that us as teens struggle a lot with because especially with the social climate today.
Absolutely.
Social media, everything. And I think just overall in general, us as humans tend to compare a lot. So I think it's something like which we have here written down is seeking validation and approval looks like excessive people-pleasing, difficulty making decisions, constant need for reassurance, and an over-reliance on social media for external feedback.
It can also manifest as a fear of disagreeing, frequently apologizing, and feeling hurt or angry when you don't receive the praise you desire. This behavior is often rooted in low self-esteem and a fear of rejection.
I also feel like it can be shown by like constant seeking, not even just on social media, but like in day-to-day life. Like, you know, I think everybody does it in their own kind of way. Unless you are definitely aware of it and have tried and you've been working on combating it, like, it definitely is something that's hard to get over and you can't just, like, switch that off.
For sure.
Speaking from personal experience, like, you can't just turn it off.
Yeah. It's, again, it is rooted in low self-esteem and a fear of rejection, and that it's not easy to, like, take away from yourself.
And I think it's really interesting to look at where it might stem from. Because relatively, when I talk to my parents about this, and friends and family, therapists, whatever, it's kind of shocking because it's not like I come from an unhealthy household at all. And they're in no way, like, shaming me if I get a bad grade. In fact, they encourage me to be accepting of the fact that I got a bad grade or whatever. They're not telling me I'm a bad person if they're, like, correcting me, whatever. But I still tend to be really hard on myself and my brother too. And I think it's, you know, if you take a look at yourself culturally, like what you're around too, I don't think it just stems from where you are at home, although that could certainly enhance it. I think just being in our high schools today has created that atmosphere, unless you just really don't care.
For sure. And I feel like when we seek validation and approval, it's usually around our peers rather than like adults, for example. I feel like it's a lot easier to speak with adults than it is peers because you're not afraid of their reaction.
Yeah. And I feel like it's also like if we go back to our support system and that whole episode, I think it's easier to talk to those people you feel especially close with because those are the people you feel like you won't get judgment from.
Absolutely.
Because I still know even today, like, when you don't want to speak up in class because of certain people in the class, like, I know, like, in my one class, like, I just don't want to talk that much because even if I have the answer that someone else says and it is, like, actually correct, whoa, and the teacher's like, oh, that's fantastic, like, that's exactly what I was looking for. Sometimes it's, like, a very simple response, and I'm like, oh, I feel like it's too simplistic or whatever, and the people in the class are going to be like, oh, ha, ha, ha. Like, there's definitely people in that class that would laugh about it.
For sure. And we're afraid of other people thinking that we're more stupid than we want to be seen as.
And I think that's just something that even teachers, I don't know if they realize how much that affects us, because sometimes it's like, oh, you're afraid to be wrong. I'm like, it's not necessarily I'm afraid to be wrong. Like, it depends on the climate. It also depends on who's in the class.
Absolutely.
Like, I've certainly answered questions wrong in certain classes and, like, been like, oh, okay. But then in other classes, I'm like, oh, I don't want to answer something wrong because I'll get clowned for it in, like, 5 seconds.
For sure. And it won't even be to your face. It'll also be behind your back, and you know that it's happening because you've heard it about other people before.
And you've also probably done it yourself.
Absolutely.
So
let's move into the behavioral signs of seeking validation and approval.
So first up, we have people-pleasing. You say what you think others want to hear or agree to things you don't want to do to maintain a positive relationship.
You might have difficulty with decisions where you can't even make minor choices without seeking approval from multiple people. So like when we're talking about difficulty with decisions, this can be something as simple as like if you're doing a presentation in class, picking like a theme for your presentation. Like if you do something on Google Slides or on Canva, going through what that slide looked like, you're constantly asking like, oh, like how does this look? Or like you might show up with multiple choices for other people to pick from because you're afraid that the choice that you might pick might not be the one that the people in your group like.
And that's just like one general idea. Like I know personally for me, I do tend to do that, although in group projects I'm more secure with myself.
Okay.
That I think I trust myself well enough to know like I'm like one of those types of people that like I don't trust, this sounds bad, but like I don't trust other people to do it adequately or to the standard that I would like it to be completed. So I would rather pick the style or whatever, unless like I know someone in that group well enough to know that they would probably have good input on that.
I can see where you're coming from on this, but I'm saying it in the way that like I'm still picking the choices from them to pick from.
Oh no, yeah,
so
I
like
agree.
I already know that I'm fine with all of these, and I'm like, but I don't know which one that they'd approve of the most, and so I'm seeking approval in that way.
No, I'm just saying like I think this is a very general thing. Like you might not do it in just this, but you might do it in other
absolutely
ways. Because like I definitely think I would do that too. But I feel like also people pleasing, just not wanting to say no and not putting yourself in that awkward situation to feel validated in the sense that, you know, you're afraid to make people dislike you or upset people. And thus, like, you're seeking that validation of, oh, yes, I like you. Yes, I appreciate you. Yes, you matter to me, through just not saying no. And I think that was a big thing that, like, certain teens struggle with, like, depending on where you fall. But you can also constantly seek reassurance, which I think goes hand in hand with that.
Absolutely.
So you frequently ask for compliments or reassurance, like, do you love me, or do you think that this is okay?
You might also be excessively apologizing, where you apologize often, even when you haven't done anything wrong, out of fear or disapproval. Fear of disapproval. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. So I think that, like, that, you know, constantly seeking reassurance kind of goes back, and I think it may not always look like the way you think it is, like, you know, your typical, like, pick me, like, oh, I'm just so ugly, or whatever, like,
no.
That stuff, like, definitely, you're like, okay, like, you can tell there's some sort of insecurity there, but I think there's also, like, I'm going to touch a lot back to the support system, I'm realizing, because I think we touched on a lot of this there.
Yeah, and I think we're going to do a future episode elaborating more on our support system.
But again, one of the things I said in there was, like, you always think, like, if you're being a burden to other people.
Absolutely.
And then you're constantly asking. Like, that's one of the things I struggle with is I always sit there and I'm like, am I being too much? Like, I don't want to be too much. I don't want to put all my stuff on you. Like, I'm sorry if I do that. And just constantly saying that over and over again. And it's, you know, it's definitely something that I think I struggle with. And I could definitely work on.
I think that seeking reassurance isn't 100% a negative thing.
I agree.
Not only seeking that reassurance, but giving that reassurance to other people can help not only validate your feelings for those people, but also help you seek that validation in a more healthy way.
Yeah, I was going to say there's nothing wrong with seeking some sort of validation. It's more like, to what extent do you look for it?
Agreed.
Like, if you're, again, like we said, constantly seeking it, or if you feel constantly in need of that reassurance, even though you probably already know it's fine. Like I was saying in episode 7, like, Natalie has told me several times, like, it's okay, it's fine, like, I will tell you. And that's something I've really grappled with a lot of my friends, and it's still something I come to terms with, but I've gotten better at it because now, even when I feel like that, I don't say anything because I trust her enough to say something.
There's also emotional and thought-based signs, such as fear of disagreement, where you avoid disagreeing with or challenging others for fear of being judged or abandoned. And then there's also emotional distress from lack of approval, where you might feel hurt, resentful, or even like angry if you don't receive the compliments or praise you expected.
Yeah. And
when I say you feel hurt, resentful, or angry, that can also be like you being avoidant, where you just shut yourself off and you have, like, quote unquote, no more energy anymore.
I think it's really important to note that there's probably a very fine line between whether or not you're like quote seeking that approval versus it's okay to have that. I need space. I don't want to talk. I don't have a social battery right now. I don't have the energy to do something. So again, I think it's like important to reevaluate how you approach a situation and how you see yourself reacting and whether or not it's in an excessive manner. Because I think again, if you excessively like shut yourself off the minute someone might do something to trigger you, even if like I'll give an example, like the minute my friend takes like a kind of clipped tone with me, I get really scared.
Yes, agreed.
And it's like I don't know where exactly. I think it's like because I really don't like when people are upset with me. I really don't like when I've messed up because I take that really hard.
I've always hated when people give me the silent treatment because I feel like I don't know what to fix. Like I'm always I do not like confrontation. I do not like fights. And so whenever someone
like you don't like confrontation?
I don't like confrontation. I don't like confrontation. I don't like fights. And so my way of avoiding that is to like fix myself to like
so just to immediately alleviate the problem without trying to, like, compromise, work it out, whatever.
Yes, and of course it's extremely unhealthy, and as I should be, I'm working on it. But that's why the silent treatment has always been so difficult for me, where like if I don't know what's going on, I can't help fix a problem. It's also hard to communicate with someone else when you don't know what you did wrong.
Oh yeah, and I've definitely experienced, because this was how my ex acted when he was upset. And he would shut down and he would not talk to me, and that was like, it was done in a very unhealthy manner. Like, I will say it's okay to be like, I don't want to talk right now, but you have to communicate that at least, because you can't just leave the other person in the dark, and then you can't just shut them out for like several days unless it was like a huge thing.
Not to mention, you also can't expect the problem to be alleviated when the other person doesn't know what's going on.
Exactly. Yep.
You can't expect the other person to read your mind.
Yep, and that's one of the things I always said is like, I can't fix things. We can't work on this together if you don't say what is bothering you.
Absolutely.
And I think that's like where that emotional detachment can really hurt you. And I think that also stems from something that like comes from, I need approval when I feel like hurt or I need whatever. Like, I need them to know. Absolutely. That's kind of how I like took it from him, was like, it was his way of making an impact of saying, I'm hurt and now I'm gonna like
take it out,
shut you out and whatever. And I could kind of see that, but it's like what I was saying with like the clipped tone. Like, the minute, even if I know it's not necessarily about me, like I still kind of feel that like quiet panic, or maybe not even like panic, just discomfort. Yes,
absolutely. I feel like my heart drops when I hear someone just like you said, even take like a clipped tone that might not even be about me. It's just like you said, literally the feeling of discomfort.
Yeah, like I'm thinking of one particular example where like I go up to my friend and like she had just taken a big test, and like this is a really big class, and the first time I went up to her and asked, like, it, like, she kind of just, like, well, like, I don't want to say this in a way that, like, would, like, make her seem like she was being rude or what. She wasn't being rude. She just kind of was, like, very matter of fact, very, like, what? Like, it was fine, like, da-da-da. And I was just, like, and that, like, I was kind of, like, oh. And I was, like, oh, I'm being annoying. Oh, I'm being whatever. And I started immediately going through those processes of, like, what am I doing wrong? I'm, like, being irritating. I don't want to be like that. And I immediately started feeling bad. And then, but I was able to say, like, it's not me. Like, I know I didn't do anything. So I went and I checked up on her. I was like, hey, is everything okay? And she's like, yeah, I was just coming off of, like, the test. I was still, like, coming off of it, whatever, coming down, whatever. I'm fine. And it was immediately better. And so the second time she had like a test in that class again, I had approached her. I asked her about it because I forgot. And she gave me like the exact same kind of response. Like, yeah, it was fine.
Okay.
And in that moment, I felt less upset because it still like gave me that feeling of discomfort. But then I reminded myself, wait, she just came off of a test. She was like this last time. And she literally explained to you, like, yeah, sorry, I was just like, still like processing and coming off of that test. So I'm like, okay, so next time I know, like, just like let her like calm down for like the next 10 minutes, whatever, right, and she'll be better. So like, I think it's important to not over evaluate the situation, but kind of think of it from a very matter of fact, like what just happened and what just transpired standpoint, to kind of be like, am I overreacting, or did I really do something wrong?
Right. And then in terms of more emotional and thought-based signs, there's also like an external focus on evaluation, where you might rely on what other people think to determine your own self-worth and value. Just like you were saying about the fact that like we feel discomfort when other people are like upset with us, and we think like, oh, I'm being annoying. I need to fix myself. I need to chill. You know?
And I think this goes along with that feeling of like not only comparing ourselves to others, but basing our worth on what other people say and focusing too much on that and self-confidence. And there's a lot of things that I connect with in this particular episode, because this is kind of something I hugely struggle with. I don't know if that's the case for Sophia.
Oh, I feel like it definitely is for me too. I feel like we both have a lot of anecdotes that relate to this. Yeah. This episode particularly.
And I think that's part of the reason why we wanted to do this, because we knew it was such a big thing, and we're like, well, let's talk about it.
Right. When we were doing research about different episodes, I feel like this is the one that stood out to us the most, considering like the amount that we connected to it.
Actually, well, I know how this one specifically came about, because I don't know where I was. I was walking. Oh, I remember. I had a crash out in the car after a violin lesson to my mom. Like, I come home, I picked her up from something. I picked her up from like some appointment. And she was like, how was your lesson? And I was like, I don't know, like, because we do district solos, like a big like audition, whatever, you have to prepare this piece. And I'm extremely busy. And orchestra's starting to become like a chore to me. It's not as enjoyable. I haven't had the time to practice. I'm not as motivated to practice. And now moving into the school year, I'm just so slammed with work that it's like kind of impossible to find time to practice at all. And so I was freaking out and kind of telling my mom, like, I went to my lesson, and whatever happened, like 1 week I played the district solo really well, which is, again, our big audition piece. And I've been working on it for several months, but like I haven't been consistently practicing it because I've just been so busy. So, I was telling her, 1 week I play it really well. The next week I play it terribly, and I was getting upset. And we kind of got into the conversation of, why is districts important to you? Like, why do you want to make it? And we kind of came down to the conclusion, like, my mom said to me, she goes, so you're doing it all for a pin? And it wasn't like, oh, it's what the pin symbolizes. But what the pin symbolizes is like, you made something, you were good enough to do something. And it was kind of another way of me realizing, like, I'm again just seeking validation and approval of like saying I'm good enough in something because it was attributed to, an achievement. So, it's kind of, you can see how it's like I was constantly, like, I came into that realization. And then from there, I was like, you know what? We should do a podcast episode on this.
Right. And then when I was researching, like, when we were writing out what we wanted to mention in our script, I felt like this is something that I feel like a lot of people can connect to. It's pretty broad in who it affects. And I feel like both of us also specifically connect to it. And so it might be easier for us to talk about it as well. In terms of more emotional and thought-based signs, we have difficulty with boundaries. So this might mean that you have trouble saying no to requests or setting boundaries to avoid upsetting others. And this is something that I've been dealing with a little bit recently when it came to the boundaries of something I had talked to my friend about that I thought I was fine with until it started happening. And I slowly came to the realization that maybe this isn't what I want to be doing. Maybe I'm not comfortable with this. And I still haven't brought myself to be able to talk to her about what's going on because I'm afraid of what she'll think or like what her reaction will be.
Mm-hmm. And I think from here, it's another really good example, like I was saying earlier, to evaluate that support system and kind of really understand why you're afraid of that person. Like, are you afraid of that person? Are you like more afraid of the reaction? You know, kind of where does that stem from? And like I was saying earlier with that one friend that I, had talked to after her test, and she kind of gave me like that clipped response, I was able to kind of realize like it wasn't me that did anything. Like, the reason why I was feeling upset was more like I felt like I was being irritating, and not because she had explicitly stated that she was irritated.
Mhm.
And even so, when I went up to her like 10 minutes later and checked up on her, she was like, "Oh no, yeah, I'm fine. Like,
Right.
everything's good." And that kind of like reaffirmed the idea in my mind, like, it's not you, like, it's just kind of your expectation, and you're kind of just afraid of being annoying to people rather than being afraid of their reaction and afraid of being annoying to them.
Right. And then there are social and online behaviors that can indicate seeking validation and approval. So something as simple as social media obsession, where you spend a lot of time checking social media, counting likes, and feeling bad when people don't get enough, your posts don't get enough engagement from people, might be something that indicates that you're seeking validation from people that you might not even know that well.
And I think that's something that's, it's definitely something that has just started to largely impact us now because, social media, in terms of the history of human existence, is very relatively new.
Mm-hmm.
And we were so quick to fall into that. And it makes me curious to think as to why we so easily fell into that after years of not having something like that, like centuries of not having something like that. And I think it's also partially attributed to like the dopamine hits that have been so quickly supplied to us through, technology now.
Technology and the novelty of everything. Everything you're seeing, all of the shorts, clips, reels, TikToks are all novel information that you're getting.
And you get hit with it so quickly, so you start to realize like it kind of starts conditioning you to want those things. I mean, it is literally conditioning you to want those things faster. And I think that plays into why we seek that sort of validation so much, because it's like, oh, people like what I'm doing, people appreciate what I'm doing, and it makes you feel like you matter.
And then there's fishing for compliments, where you explicitly or implicitly ask for compliments and get upset if they don't come. This can come with things like, Sophia, you talked about like something a pick-me might say earlier, where it's like, "Oh, I'm so ugly." This statement, this pick-me mentality, can come from someone who is seeking validation and approval, but doesn't know the healthy way to do it.
Yeah, and I think from social media, there's been so much stigma around that. Like, we're so quick to like focus mental health, be self-confident, and then we separate it from the memes and the jokes about it, and I'm such a pick-me girl, and like, we forget to connect the dots and say, hey, maybe those people who are acting that way are like this, and then we can push them to be more self-confident rather than, making fun of them. Like, say, like, reaffirm them, but also reaffirm them in a way that it's like, hey, but you're always like that. Like, you don't need me to tell you that.
Right. And then finally, there's seeking attention through your actions, where you might act out or do things on purpose to get attention from others. And this we can see a lot in the classroom, where you might just be outwardly obnoxious just to get negative or positive attention.
I think I've definitely seen this with it. Just like tons of people see this, and I think it's interesting because it's primarily in boys.
Absolutely.
And I think this has, and don't take my word on this, I'm not an expert again, like me and Sophia so often state, but in my personal opinion, and in terms of where, what I've observed and what I kind of know psychologically, men are always not supposed to be seen as softy, vulnerable, whatever. They don't need that protection. They don't need that validation. They're the strong man, da da da. And so almost that acting out is their way of
seeking that attention.
Seeking that attention, saying I matter, saying I'm valued and whatever, in a not so like macho man way. And I think that's, one of the kind of areas that comes from. But also it's kind of, there's always behaviors at home and just, of course, the just normal culture of being a teenage boy.
Absolutely.
But I think I remember earlier you were saying to me, now Sophia doesn't do this sort of like seeking attention. Not that just sounded like I just trashed you.
Yeah, no, for sure you did. No kidding. Go ahead.
Okay,
go ahead.
That's not what I meant. It's like, you were saying like, oh, you definitely have like the people pleasing and like I definitely have that too. But the seeking attention through actions, like you were mentioning earlier, like this is like the one and only time like I asked you about it so I could talk about mine because I really wanted to tell you about my thing. And yeah, so you like rarely ever do that, but that's like a prime example of like seeking attention through actions is like bringing something up or doing something so that someone asks you, like reciprocates
asking to answer.
Yeah. And like reciprocates it. And I think that's like so common among so many teens because I think most of us just kind of want to push and show like, oh, this is me, this is what I do,
right.
without stopping to be like, let me take in what the other person is doing, which is defeating the purpose because if we're all doing it, then we're not taking it in.
Exactly.
So I guess the main takeaway would be, take that time to like reevaluate how you approach situations if you feel that emotional discomfort, if you see yourself doing any of these things. And, there's, of course, like I said earlier, a fine line between doing these things in healthy moderation and it's okay to want to feel validated versus doing it so much that it's like you need that validation.
Absolutely.
And you kind of almost depend on it.
So that pretty much wraps up our tea journal for this week.
Welcome back to A Sip of Serenity.
To recap, this is basically a more in-depth segment on how to glow up physical and mental aspects of your life.
For today, we'll be sticking with our validation and approval theme and talking about how to stop unhealthily seeking it.
So, first of all, we want to talk about how to build your internal self-worth. So you first need to start by recognizing your strengths and reminding yourself of your accomplishments, skills, and unique qualities to build a foundation of self-worth that doesn't depend on other people's opinions.
You can also practice self-acceptance. Accept your imperfections and acknowledge that it is okay to have areas for growth. Be kind and compassionate towards yourself.
Another thing you can do is to set yourself some personal goals. Like in doing this, you can focus on goals and values that are authentic to you. And these actions should be guided by your personal beliefs and not the opinions of others. And so this comes from like the values that you've found in yourself after talking to other people, possibly. Like, yes, people can have an effect on your values, but they should be your internal values.
And I think you can also find those values if you reflect on where you've come. And we do have an episode coming up all about reflecting on your past and kind of that mental growth that you've gone through since you were a kid and just a bunch of like what I wish I knew, basically.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I feel like this topic is really important because I think in this day and age, and I know I've talked about this before, is we put so much on our accomplishments. And I think I stressed this in my first Steeped Insights episode, but we are not our accomplishments.
No.
And I think that's something that a lot of teens struggle with because there's so much pressure on it, especially for college applications.
And yes, our accomplishments do make up a portion of what we are, but they are not like the whole of us.
Yeah. And that's building your internal self-worth because accomplishments are very external. And if you think about it, if you were to describe yourself, you don't say, well, I did this, this, and this, and this. You have character traits.
Absolutely.
Who are you as a person? So this is where your values come from.
And where have you come from?
Yes. So finally, for this, building your internal self-worth, celebrate your wins. Acknowledge and celebrate your own achievements, no matter how small they seem, to reinforce your sense of capability.
In addition to this, it's important to celebrate your wins regardless of if it's something, like you said, something small. Even if it's like, I cleaned the litter box today without my parents asking me to.
Yeah.
That is a small win. Not it's not quite something to celebrate by, doing something crazy, but like, go take yourself out, go get something for yourself,
Let your accomplishments lift you up, not define you.
Absolutely.
I feel like that's something that's really important because celebrating those accomplishments builds your self-worth, but it cannot be all your life is centered on, because you start to lose focus of yourself, and then you're not really building internal self-worth because you're building your self-worth based on what you can do and what happens when you're not able to do something.
Absolutely.
Then you start feeling those I'm not good enough and all those other feelings that so many people think about, and that's huge.
Absolutely.
And especially for teens, it's huge because, again, it's like what college you get into, what you want to be when you grow up, and it's too heavily focused on.
And we're starting to get into that now, so I feel like this is a really important episode for everyone that's starting, like really just starting the college application process.
For sure.
And then after shifting your focus to your internal self-worth, you can shift it to internal validation. And so to practice self-validation, you can learn to trust and validate your own feelings, thoughts, and experiences by acknowledging your own worth without needing external approval.
So you can do this kind of by I love, again, like I've said, I really love journaling and the aspect of it, but if you don't want to journal, take 5 minutes out of your day maybe to sit down and kind of meditate and think about, what am I proud of doing today? What was I proud of myself for? What can I look forward to? What is there that I'm watching myself make progress in? And even if there are minor setbacks, you want to keep your thinking on, well, how can I improve? Because getting so stuck on, well, if I did this instead, or I was able to do this. Like, I'll give for an example, I just did terrible on a calculus test. And it killed me because I should have been able to do really well on that test. And I knew the stuff and I blanked on some of the questions, and I was getting really upset with myself. And during the test, like Sophia had talked about prior to, this episode and the one where we were talking about test taking strategies, I was really trying to calm myself down.
Right.
But, even when that doesn't work, accepting what is happening is sometimes a big step towards trusting yourself and trusting your capabilities.
Absolutely.
Because you're not always going to get it right. And I was able to sit there and say, I accept the fact that I was not able to perform as well as I could have. And I know I could have done better, but I'm not going to let that be the huge focus.
And I feel like that goes into the next thing, where you can use positive affirmations to replace like negative self-talk. And this can be like really stupid, or like just generally just the opposite of what you're thinking. So like you can say like, I am confident, or I am enough, as your like positive talk. But if you're talking about like what Sophia was talking about at the couch, it's like, I messed up, like I can't believe I'm that stupid. Instead of saying that, you can be like, oh, I can do better next time. Now I know what to do.
Focus. Yeah, I agree. You can focus and say, let me learn from this experience, and what can I change next time? Or I will make sure that this doesn't happen again. Absolutely. And even if it does, you can always think ahead, think forward. Don't think back. I saw a really good picture on Instagram the other day, and it was a picture of a guy with a backpack, and the backpack was huge, and it was labeled past, and he was talking to someone, and it said, wouldn't it be so much easier if you left that behind? And it hits you, because that's right. If you carry all the things that you've done wrong, and you're holding it against yourself, and you're letting it hold you back, you're gonna fall over. It's not gonna help you. But
it's gonna be hard to pick yourself back up.
Yes, take those experiences, take something away from it, and walk away and keep moving forward.
Absolutely. And then you can also develop your own internal compass by learning to trust your own judgment. So like when making a decision, you can ask yourself if it aligns with your core values and what feels right to you, specifically you, and not what the values of maybe your family is or your friends are. You can have different values. I mean, yes, they're a good base to build off of, but they don't necessarily have to be the same.
And this goes back to the same thing we were talking about in, building yourself, like your internal self-worth. Your internal compass and all of that is so important to you as an individual, because we're not our parents, we're not our friends, we're nobody but ourselves. And in reality, yes, you do have your friends and families, but at the end of the day, the person that you will always have is yourself.
Absolutely.
And you need to be able to sit there and trust yourself in order to move forward and have good relationships with people. And I think that's so important. So go for it.
Okay. And then you can adjust your behaviors and your environment by setting healthy boundaries, first of all. So you can establish clear boundaries in your relationships to protect your self-worth and prevent others from having an undue influence on how you feel about yourself.
I think that one's big.
Yeah.
Because I think, especially for me, there are teens who will like go out of their way to do anything, especially to get what they want. Like, I was telling somebody yesterday, for the career path that I want to go into, I've been so, I don't want to say I've been so ingrained, and it's been so ingrained in me, and I want it so bad that I'm willing to put myself through hell and back for it. And that's not good. And this is where, again, your accomplishments, but also your ambitions. And having ambitions is great. Like, I love that. And you should have ambitions, and you should have goals, and you should go for it. But don't let it create, like, don't let it take away boundaries or create unnecessary boundaries for you. Like, you need to establish not only clear boundaries with yourself and others, or no, not only having clear boundaries with others, but also having clear boundaries with yourself.
Absolutely.
Where do you draw the line that's saying, I'm pushing myself too far, this is negatively affecting me, and in the long run, it probably won't help me. So that's really, really important. And I think that's, again, like touching back to what I was saying in my first Steeped Insights of not always taking those harder classes.
Yes.
Because will it negatively affect you? Probably.
Yes. And that goes into learning how to say no by like saying no to small requests first to build confidence in handling the discomfort of potentially disappointing someone, and then moving on to larger requests. So when it comes to larger requests, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's coming from someone else. Like Sophia said, that could be your own ambition, asking something of you that you can't give.
I think the other thing that really hit me was when my mom told me, and again, like I'm touching back to a conversation that we had with districts and other things.
Districts is in orchestra, right?
Yeah, district orchestra.
So it's like a competition?
It's a competition to get in.
Okay.
Like, it's an audition. It's a big audition. Okay. But one of the things that, again, going back to not letting your accomplishments define you, something that you can say is when you start feeling those things, you can choose to say no to yourself.
Right.
You don't have to tell yourself those things. And it feels really stupid. And it's like, well, but I'm thinking that anyway. But the more you tell yourself, like, no, I'm choosing not to believe this. I'm choosing to move past this.
So you're choosing not to do districts?
Well, like, choosing, if I'm saying, like, if I don't get in, or if I'm choosing not to go for it, that it doesn't say I'm a bad person or I'm not worthy of things. I'm telling myself no.
Okay.
My brain is going, because these things are so heavy for me and like have gained so much importance in my life to my self-worth, that if I don't do it, I start to feel like, oh, I'm not enough or I'm not doing enough. Right. You can sit there and say no. Tell yourself no and reform your brain. Actively reform your brain to not believe those things by telling yourself no too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you can always surround yourself with support. Like we say in episode 7, and like we're going to say in our future episodes every single time, you can cultivate your relationships with people who genuinely support you and accept you for who you are and not what you can do for them.
Yeah. And like I said, again, challenge those negative thoughts. When you feel someone dislikes you, question the validity of that thought. I actually, Sophia watched me go through this just this past week. I was questioning one of my friendships with one of my closest friends. And it wasn't her, but I was more questioning my place in her life.
Absolutely.
And, Sophia, and this is where surrounding yourself with good support really helps because they're able to say, check the validity of your thought.
Yes. Like,
where do you think that's coming from?
Absolutely. So we're able to not analyze it in a negative way, but we were able to look back on what has happened in Sophia's life and what might have contributed to her thinking this way.
And breaking it down. And we, chalked it up to, hey, you might have some trauma from this experience, or you might have taken something away from, a tone or something that,
you should know that doesn't relate to you guys' relationship.
Or you're overanalyzing it, which is something I tend to do a lot. So questioning the validity of your thought is sometimes okay. That's not questioning yourself, but it's questioning what am I telling myself and what is, what is fact.
Absolutely.
Because so often do we trick ourselves into thinking something. So we need to be able to, again, build that internal self-worth and have that support system so that we're able to trust ourselves.
Absolutely.
And then no, you go for it.
Okay. And then, like we said, you can use mindfulness You can use mindfulness tactics to prevent it from spiraling into more negative thoughts. And these mindfulness tactics can be combined with the support that you surround yourself with.
For sure.
Like Sophia said, we really just analyzed it in a positive light rather than a negative light that you might do on your own. Lastly, you can seek additional support. So you can practice self-care by yourself, where you engage in activities that nourish your mind, body, and soul to build a strong sense of well-being.
I really love this one, and this goes back to, I think, the self-meditation and taking that time for yourself. But
Absolutely.
also, I was thinking earlier today, like, if don't waste the day. I see a lot of reels on stuff that contribute to my like frame of mind, thought process, whatever. But one of the things that this reel was saying was like, all day people wait for 5 p.m. All week people wait for Friday. And like all winter people wait for summer, and all summer people wait for winter. And we're constantly waiting for something to come. But it's like, we need to enjoy the present. He's like, don't let the pursuit of tomorrow affect like something for today. Like, like the present.
I've heard that before.
And I really like that, because I think we do spend so much time looking forward and looking on that we need to look at today and what have we done for today. And that can tie into seeking for approval, because we're constantly looking for, what can I do for this person? What can I do to get here? But more, we should sit here and say, what have I done today?
Absolutely. I love that.
And maybe just set a time for yourself to do something just the slightest bit fun every single day.
Yep.
Take that time for yourself to support yourself.
That being not on your phone.
Yes. Like, I was thinking, I'm like, well, why don't I just go outside? And I love sitting outside and experiencing nature. It's the one time that I can quiet my thoughts. And, looking at the scale of things like mountains and nature and all those things makes you realize how, I don't want to say insignificant, but how small some of the things that we create such a huge deal about
Absolutely
in our lives is. And that's so important to me, is realizing that not everything is as of strong importance, or maybe that thing that someone said isn't
as
that
heavy.
Yeah, isn't that heavy, isn't that big of a deal, and we can move past it.
Absolutely.
So finding time for you to be able to come to terms with things yourself and accept what's happened during your day for yourself is so important.
100%. And then last but not least, again, Sophia and I are not professionals in any way.
We always say this.
If you need it, you should consider professional help.
Yes.
And so if you find it challenging, and really challenging, or not that challenging, it doesn't matter. If you want professional help, you should break the pattern of like not seeking validation. A therapist or a counselor can provide that guidance and support that you might need.
And I think it's really important to note that going to a professional doesn't mean that you're crazy.
No.
And it's a good thing to do, because I think a lot of people, just like we said about our guidance counselors, like, oh, it's a neglected resource because of, probably the stigma around certain things.
Absolutely.
And it's okay to ask for help, but it's also, maybe it's not always asking for help, but it's helping you find clarity on things and just
or like a new
focus your life.
perspective.
Yes, a new perspective, clarity, and focus in your life, because, again, we're always running around doing so much that I don't think we like stop to look at things. And so that professional help can really help you sit there and focus your life and see what your priorities are and what 100%. You need. So I think to wrap it up, you can kind of trust yourself by finding times to support yourself, by finding time for yourself and doing things to support your mental health by creating that time for yourself, journaling, meditating,
absolutely,
setting healthy boundaries for yourself, with yourself personally and with others. And that goes also for saying no.
No, saying no, not just to other people, but also to yourself and your own ambitions if it ends up being like too heavy.
And I also want to say, don't put too much on your accomplishments. They do not define you, and they do not validate your existence. You validate your existence.
Absolutely.
And that's something that's so important.
Okay, that's the end of Sip of Serenity. Thank you so much for listening to this episode.
I hope you'll join us next week on
Sip and Spill.